Big Time.
On today's episode of Big Time, the podcast brought to you by, sadly, nobody right now. In case you missed it, we hit free agency with BJ's closing. We're hitting the open market, weighing our options, seeing what's out there, and we're going to make a decision soon, so stay tuned for that. But back to business on today's episode of Big Time. We're joined by an absolute legend, as legendary as they come. I don't even know what else to say. Let's just get to it. Larry Murphy on Big Time. Let's go.
I'm on my way, I'm making it. Big time. Big time. I've got to make it show, yeah. Big time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another round of this show we call Big Time. We got a big time guest for today's episode, coming live on location with a beautiful view out the window from Violet Settlement. Usually whenever I have a guest in the show, I can kind of pinpoint them to like one school they've been at or like one program they've been a part of. But like for this guy, I don't know. We're just going to call him Coach Larry Murphy because he's been attached to so many schools and
That's right.
different programs. But Larry Murphy on the episode today, so we're very excited about this one. He's been name dropped a whole lot, so we're going to get some things clarified and hopefully just have a bunch of great stories told on today's episode. You're kind of familiar with the show a little bit, right?
A little bit. Haven't heard a podcast.
Right.
This is the first podcast I've ever done.
That's good. This was Legs' first podcast as well, too. So we're breaking new ground for all the legends around here. One of the first things I always ask my guests, if you care to share, what are you drinking on tonight for the episode?
Captain and Coke.
All right. That's a great choice right there. I'm just going with the Red Bull. It's been a long day today, but there you go. So you've been around for a long time. Like I said, you've been attached to many different schools, many different programs. But I think what most people might not know, or maybe not brought up as much, you're not originally from Fort Kent, not from even the Valley.
I'm from Caribou.
Yeah.
I played basketball for the Vikings and baseball for the Vikings. Baseball was my passion. Basketball was I was passionate about it when I was playing it, but I was all about baseball back then. And lucky enough to play on a state championship basketball team with Mike Thurston, part of that mid-court. Well, actually, it was deeper than mid-court shot that won a state championship.
Yeah, I want to get to that. I want to get to that right away, though. I want to ask you about that, but we'll take it there in a little bit. But you mentioned baseball, and I also had an episode with Legs, and he was mentioning how big baseball used to be all throughout the county and up here especially. So the baseball scene was a lot bigger growing up, I'm guessing.
Listen, in the summertime, this is no exaggeration, 10 to 12 hours a day at the park doing baseball things. Games, drills, activities. We used to have an inter-city league, well, inter-town, I guess we could call it Caribou City back then. And then we would travel and play all the other county teams. So baseball was top-notch, had to really stay with it or you'd get cut. You get the varsity, and I can remember sitting on, laying on dugouts and watching our idols play high school ball. Now those guys are buddies, so it was neat. Baseball back then, it was such a pure sport. I loved it.
Yeah. And Legs had also mentioned that there were semi-pro teams around at that time.
Oh yeah, So after high school, I was supposed to go to Umpy and play some baseball, but didn't go. Thought I made a decision not to go to school, so I did hang out and play a little summer baseball. I guess you'd call it a semi-pro league where Jerry Duffy, who was quite a baseball player and coach at Caribou, kind of pulled Mike Thurston and I in to play baseball, and we did that for a summer. That was exciting. I mean, and some of the people actually went on to the minors. It was kind of I wouldn't say it was a professional league, but there were some scouts around. Some guys actually got minor league gigs out of it.
Were you going into Canada to play it all too?
Yes, yeah. We used to go into Canada and play. Yeah.
Traveled all over the place then.
Yeah.
You ever come across Legs back in the day?
You know, I don't recall, but it's possible.
Yeah.
But what's funny is Legs has that nickname, and he was known for pitching.
Exactly.
And his brother was faster than hell and was called Arms, Arms and Legs. I never could figure out how that came about.
Yeah. Interesting story to talk about right there. Just like we mentioned, the baseball was a little bit different when you were growing up, maybe a little bit more popular back then compared to what it is now. Caribou was different back then as well.
Oh, yes.
It's probably not what people know it as to be right now. A much bigger place.
No,
I'm
I think all our county towns. Fort Fairfield was a Class A town. Caribou was Class A. Presque Isle. A lot of money running through Fort Fairfield. It was like a potato king. I remember our summer basketball league. We went to Sam Jones Basketball School in Fort Fairfield. So the Celtics,
Sam Jones from the Boston Celtics?
The Celtics would come up because they were buddies with Skip Chappelle.
Yeah.
Skip Chappelle was the last man cut the year that John Havlicek was a rookie. And they kept John Havlicek and cut Skip Chappelle. So I think
they might have made the right decision there.
Made the right decision. But Skip always stayed close to the organization, and he would have Sam up and Casey up and Wayne the Wall, Embry, and Larry Siegfried, and some names from the deep past.
Yeah.
So, but great camp. Think about that. You're a high school kid. And Don Nelson was my coach.
Oh, wow.
2 summers in a row I ended up on Don's team, and he back then he seemed enormous.
Yeah.
He's really only like a 6'8" forward.
Right. But different times back then.
Yeah. But no, that was a quality camp, and lots was learned.
Right.
Yeah.
Kids from all over travel to that camp, or was it just more?
Kids from all over.
Yeah.
All over. I remember Coach Duffy helped us all get part-time jobs to pay for our way over, because it wasn't cheap, and some of us didn't have a whole lot of cash on reserve. So he helped those that needed to. He got us. We pumped gas, or we mowed lawns, or we did a combination of things until we got our fee paid for.
Red Auerbach ever make his way up here? Or?
No, Red never came. No, Red never came. But always Sam, always Casey.
Yeah.
The 2 guards came. And Sam used to put on a display at least once a day of shooting bank shots. I don't think he made many shots straight to the hoop. He was the king of the bank shot. He said it's just like a long layup. And he would make really 20, 25-foot bank shots all day long, as smooth as possible.
Were people calling glass back then, or was that not a thing?
No, I don't think no.
it was normal back then.
No, it was just, that was him.
Yeah.
That was him.
That's crazy. So you played baseball, played basketball. You mentioned the state championship game in high school. That's what I want to talk about, because I know a little bit about my history.
Yeah.
You guys called the Cardiac Kids?
We were the Cardiac Kids.
Okay.
We won our Eastern Maine semifinal, our Eastern Maine final, and the State of Maine final by a total of 5 points.
What year was this?
1969.
And
in each of those games, we were trailing by 5 or more with about a minute to go. And so, we caused people some cardiac arrest. I remember we were down 5, and we went into a press against John Bapps, and we had 3 straight steals. Bam, bam, bam. 3. It was almost like they just panicked and handed the ball to us, and we got 3 straight layups before the coach. He was calling for a timeout after the second one, but. So by the time we got the timeout, we were up 1. We ended up winning that game, I think, by 2. The next game in the Eastern Maine Finals, a local coach here, Eddie Marshall, was on the foul line in charge of boxing out the shooter. And our shooter was Michael Kelly. And Michael made the first one to tie the game, and then he shot the next one, and he missed. It hit back rim, back iron. And Eddie failed to box out.
Just fundamentals right there.
Ball bounces all the way back to Mike, and Mike catches it and hits a smooth little jumper from the foul line. Boom, and the buzzer goes off.
That was it.
Yeah, shortly after the buzzer goes off. So Eddie, being a friend of mine, most every basketball season, I say, Ed, what's the first drill you're working on? Boxing out the shooter, Murph. Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah. So who do you guys want to play in the state championship?
Where did we play it?
Who'd you play in the state championship?
Westbrook. And then here's the thing about the state championship game. We had never led the entire game. We actually never led while the clock was running, because we tied it with about 10 seconds to go. We were pressing. They inbounded. They broke our pressure. Got to about the foul line, extended that. I think they thought there was less time, and so the guy pulls up and shot his jumper, and he'd been hitting that jumper all night, and he rattled it. And we had our 6'7" kid got back, rebounded it, threw an outlet to Michael, elbow extended. Mike took, I think, 2 dribbles towards the middle and then shot a running right-hander. He didn't heave it. He actually, because he used to compete with the JV coach for quarters after practice for taking mid-court shots or deeper. And so took 2 dribbles and let a nice smooth running shot go, and one referee was right there, and as soon as it left his hand, I don't think it was a foot away from his hand, and back down a gun went off, not a buzzer, but a gun. Something like a starting gun, you know, bang. And so nobody could tell if it was off or not, but the referee closest to Mike was, if it goes, it's good. Yeah. So the other referee watched it, and it travels, and the other referee you're looking at him, he's right under the basket, and it's one of those that hits the back of the rim, but it barely moves the net. Yeah. So you're not sure if it, brushed the net and was short. Yeah. And he goes, it's good. Wow. So the party began. The Westbrook fans had been calling us all sorts of names. Things that have to do with potato picking and lumberjacks. And
yeah, so that's the question I got for you, because, in terms of the county, like Caribou and Prescott were normally the teams growing up that had all the big guys and were physically imposing. But I'm guessing when you guys played like a team like Westbrook in the state championship, they were the team from Downstate that was big and imposing. Like, were you guys severely outmatched, or were they heavily favored?
No, actually, we had quite a bit of size ourselves. Yeah. What happened in that Westbrook game is we had a young man named Quentin Blackstone, who was about 6'2", and he was a farmer, and he had shoulders about 4 feet wide. And he chose to have his career game in the state game. And I think he got 28 points and 20 boards. And Quentin had nothing but a rebound and put it back in type of offensive forte. And he kicked ass on the glass.
He picked the right time to show up.
That's right. And the kid that got that rebound was 6'7", and Mike Kelly was 6'2". He was probably one of the better players in the state back then. Mike Kelly at 6'2", and he played about, I guess we'd call a power forward now. And Quentin played that center position, but he was a good player, a solid player. But in that state game, he looked like he was all state. He was all state for a day, for a night, and it was unbelievable. Without it, we don't win. Right. We don't win.
So was that your senior year or junior?
Senior year.
So what were you guys coming into the tournament? Were you guys one of the top teams in Class A, or
we were number one?
Number one.
We were number one.
Undefeated during this regular season?
No. In fact, Orono was undefeated, had an undefeated season, and they claimed they were undefeated for the season, but they came to our Christmas tournament, and we beat them on our floor in the Christmas tournament. They always seem to forget that, but they always talk about that.
Was it like a not preseason, but just like a tournament?
A holiday tournament. With the champion declared, and we were the champions, and they were the runners-up. And so that Peter Gavitt played on that. Peter Gavitt.
I know that name sounds familiar.
He coached at Orono afterwards. Okay. Yeah. He went on. He played at Orono, and then he coached at Orono. He coached the women there. He's a pretty good coach, pretty good player as well. Yeah.
What was the schedule like for you guys? Because you guys weren't the only Class A school in the county at that point.
No. Like I said, I mean, Fort Kent was a much larger school. They were pushing probably 800, 900 kids. Yeah. We were about 1,000. So the competition was stiff. Holton was rugged with Terry Sperling coaching them. Almost every game you went out, if you didn't play hard and play well, you weren't going to win. So the schedules were solid. You were challenged every game out. You had to bring your best game or go home.
Was Limestone good back then? Like, I'm guessing Loring was.
Limestone wasn't. I don't recall them being too stellar, but I do remember. Coach Terry Sperling was so intimidating as an opposing coach. I mean, he was one of those guys that he's had that Lowell Osgood reputation. I mean, he had the scowl and the growl, and I mean, I didn't even play for him. He bothered me. Yeah. I looked over at him coaching his team, and he scared the hell out of me. So I'm glad I had Duff. But anyway, Holton, Fort Fairfield, Prescott, Caribou. Limestone to a degree, but no, we were all, back then it was double L, large locale. It was L, double L, L, S, M and S, medium and small. So kind of weird, but anyway.
A little different back then.
Yeah.
So obviously up here in the valley, we have our rivals, Fort Camp, Madawaska, stuff like that. A little bit different for Caribou. You had the rivalry right next door, Presque Isle.
And it still exists.
Yeah.
It still exists. It's you know that Presque Isle, the Vikings and the Wildcats, when they get together, it's going to be hell to pay for somebody. You know, they're really hard fought games. And I kind of liked when I coached here at Fort Kent, the two games that I went after the hardest, or I subconsciously, I guess, prepared the best for, were those two games, because somehow beating the PI and beating the Caribou, the reward was much greater than beating Ford or beating Holton. Those were always good, but somehow I took a lot more pride in having my teams be able to come away with a victory against Presque Isle and Caribou.
What was it like as a player for you back then? I'm guessing those were some pretty heated, intense games, physical games.
Basketball-wise, I didn't get to the floor a lot in my senior year because we had a bunch of super sophomores. In fact, I played soccer that fall in order to have enough conditioning and stamina to outplay some people in tryouts. We'd try out 60 guys looking for 12. And even though I'd been a spot starter as a junior, the freshmen were undefeated, and there were 3 of them that were outstanding. And we had a pretty crowded group already. We only lost 2 guys, I think. And I said, 3 coming, 2 going. Somebody's going to have to go, you know. And I said, it ain't going to be me. So I picked up the game of soccer in kind of a panic to make sure I was in shape. And I ended up with a hell of a career in soccer as a player and as a coach.
Right.
But it helped. It helped. It got me on the team for a state championship game. And then also I did get some playing time. I was a bit of a defensive disruptor.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the scouting report on Murph as a player back then?
5'7", 155, probably the fastest kid in the school. Yeah. And a defensive demon. Yeah. A defensive demon.
You took pride in it.
I took a lot of pride in it, and I guess it wasn't like you got to do this, you got to do this. It just came, and just when I hit the floor, I was after you. You know, if you were my assignment. And then I guarded Mike Thurston every day in practice for 3 years. Yeah. You know,
was he the best player on the team?
Michael went to Orono and played on an undefeated freshman team under Skip Chappelle after graduating. There were 3 or 4 county guys: Steve Sokobe from Holton, a couple of kids from Presque Isle, Rick Carter, Mike Thurston, Peter Gavitt. That freshman team got Skip Chappelle the varsity gig at the University of Maine. And so, guarding Michael was a tough guard. And hey, listen, my fun was practice, so I went after him. And he and I used to, we didn't always get along during practice, but now we're pretty tight. He used to say, "I'm awful glad we got a game tomorrow because I'm tired of you." But,
you pushed him, you made him better. So.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. I hope so.
We talked about the state championship game and the tournament run a little bit. Talk to me about the auditorium back then a little bit. It must have been a fairly new building at the time.
No, still an old building.
Yeah.
It had its history already.
Yeah.
You know? The building's been around for a while, and the new building is beautiful. Yeah. It's great.
Not the same though.
No, I really would get goosebumps after playing there as a senior, and you go back and you bring teams there. You get outside the stadium and you could hear the cheering, the whistles blowing, the popcorn, smell of popcorn popping, and it was the place to be the 3rd week of February every year. Yeah. You needed to be there. It's special. It had a lot of basketball ghosts in its alleyways.
That's true.
Yeah, it's an awesome place. Yeah.
So you mentioned after high school you didn't go straight to college, right?
No, I decided I was going to go down to New York and get rich working and put some money in my pocket, and then found out that was stupid. And then came back, and
how long did it take you to figure that out?
about a year and a half.
Yeah.
A year and a half. So about mid-year, after about a year and a half, I came to UMFK as a second semester freshman. Bob Stett had already been here for a year, first semester, I'm sorry. And then, so I came up. He introduced me to the soccer coach, Lowell Osgood, and Lowell's another one of those legends in town. And I mean, Lowell was as old school as it gets.
Yeah.
He was a Marine. He literally looked like a bulldog. I mean, his crew cut, his eyebrows were dark, his face. I mean, he's intimidating, and he was intense. So playing for Coach Osgood was good for me because he was demanding.
But prior to that, you'd only played 1 year of organized soccer, your senior year?
1 year of organized soccer, but I fell in love with the sport.
Yeah.
So during the summer, I got this Aroostook summer soccer league that existed for a while with state championships and all.
Yeah.
That was a result of Timmy Crowley, who was a Fort Kent native, myself, Pitt Martin from Van Buren, a couple of guys from Presque Isle. We got Coach McGrath out of Umpy to be our commissioner, and we started the Aroostook Summer Soccer League. And it lasted for a bunch of years, and I think it faded out the last few years. It's faded out, but there were state championships, 3 divisions, you know. And soccer was in its infant stages when I was playing it in high school. So.
Yeah.
And by the time I got done playing it and then began coaching it, it was changing a lot, and it was good.
Did it pick up fast up here? Because I forgot who I was talking to. It might have been Legs, and like soccer didn't exist when he was going through high school. It wasn't around.
It did pick up fast because it was becoming very hot at the high school. Terry Carpenter was putting out undefeated teams, 1-loss teams, playing in state championships. The Fort Kent Warriors became very well known for their soccer prowess. And that about the same time I was going through the college ranks and then coaching, Terry had the Warriors playing some really good soccer and contending for state championships.
Were your UMFK teams any good at that point, or were they?
Well, we were fair. We couldn't compete with the Hussons, who had several foreign players. They had the De Castros. There was a set of De Castro brothers, 3 of them from Cuba.
Nope.
And we couldn't match up with them. I remember we had a game with them where our coach Osgood wasn't really a soccer man. He was a baseball, football, basketball guy.
Yeah. And
soccer was something he had to do because it existed. And so we were playing Husson, and they had been beating teams 6-0, 4-0, 5-0, 8-0. I mean, nobody could score. And they were getting high numbers in goals. The Castros were getting hat tricks and 2 apiece and whatever. And so Coach Osgood decided to play a 1-5-5.
He made that up, or is that something you just created on the spot?
I was the one.
Okay.
And then there were 10 guys playing defense, and the strategy was to kick it as far as you could and let Murph chase it down. And we actually had 2-0. I had 2 goals in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they realized, okay, this isn't going to work. We lost the game 3-2, but the 1-5-5.
Were you guys all local kids at that time, or just kind of whoever showed up?
A lot of Valley kids. A lot of Valley kids. A lot of there were several Van Buren players, several Fort Kent players. The Crowleys, Timmy Crowley was a very good soccer player. He's now the president at NMTC.
Yep.
Myself, Bob Stett from Caribou, a couple of kids from Presque Isle. And then a smattering of downstaters who were former football players that we didn't play football, that we converted into soccer players, and they like me, fell in love with it and got a little better at it. They were athletic, so no. Most of our seasons were 500 seasons. Probably only played 16 games back then. They don't, not the 20-some they play now under Coach Ashby. But, 8-8, 10-6, things like that. Yeah.
Any basketball in college or just
no
just
basketball. I was a 21-year-old father. Mm-hmm. So in my first full semester, I was a married man with a daughter. So I had too many part-time jobs to play basketball. Would have loved to play basketball, but I played the shorter season and never lost touch with basketball. Went to practices now and then when I could. Went to all the games. Talked with Coach Osgood a lot because he was my soccer coach as well as the men's basketball coach. Didn't get to play it, missed it a lot. Stayed in touch with it though, studied it, and later on ended up coaching a lot with it.
Yeah, so at what point did you kind of figure out what career path you wanted to go?
Well, I knew I wanted to be an educator. Yeah. I knew I wanted to coach. And really I didn't care if I coached soccer or basketball. Both or baseball even. So I ended up I was recruited to go back to Caribou by Dwight Hunter, and he said there's nothing opening up for coaching jobs, but you hang in there a couple of years and something will happen. So I hung in a couple of years and nothing happened. Yeah. And then I'm in a softball game one night and Leroy Marquis says, "Are you coaching yet?" I said, "No, I'm starting my third year at Caribou, and I'm a little disappointed I'm not coaching yet." He goes,
Were you teaching at that point, or?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah. I was a freshman English teacher. And so he says, "Well, I just resigned from Allagash, and they need a coach and a social studies teacher." I said, "Really?" And so that was like on a Sunday. On Tuesday, I had an interview. On Wednesday, I was hired. So that has a story to it, that night, that interview. So I'm in Allagash. I go through the interview, and there's only 3 people: the board chairman, the superintendent, and a teacher. So I do the interview, and the interview goes well, I think. They asked me to step outside the room so they could chat. So they chatted. They brought me back inside the room, and they said, so the school board chairman, Donald McBride, he says, "Mr. Murphy, we've decided to give you a chance to be our new ball coach and teacher." He says, "When you win some of them there big games, we're going to put some moose meat in the back seat of your car."
Oh, wow.
I said, "That's nice." He says, "You lose some of them there big games, we're still going to put the moose meat in the back seat of the car, but we're calling the warden." I said, "Oh, God, what am I getting into?" And that was an actual statement at my interview, like, okay, I guess I'm signing up.
Yeah. What year was this?
That was in 1978.
Had you ever been to Allagash prior to that interview?
Oh, yes, okay. Yes. I'd gone to Allagash fishing and spent a lot of time up that way, but knew no one at all at the time. But learned to love a lot of people and met a lot of people, and to this day have a lot of strong friendships and relationships up there.
So whenever you took over the coaching position up there, what was the enrollment like at Allagash at that point?
48 kids in the entire high school.
Okay, and were you living out there in Allagash, or were you traveling?
No, actually, I was living down here. It used to be a little trailer park right across from Pelletier's Florist. Yeah. We had a trailer there, and by then, a couple of kids, and so I would travel each day. And because there were actually several people from Fort Kent that worked up there, but I couldn't travel with them because I stayed for 2 practices. I coached the boys and the girls.
Both?
I did both. I got hired to coach both. And so every day from 2:30 to 6:30, I ran practices, and we'd alternate who'd go first, who'd go second. Mm-hmm. And so in my first 7 or 8 years of coaching, I coached. I got a lot of experience. It was like 2 of everything every time we went out. So we'd go out and play. I would coach the girls against the Ashland girls, and then the boys against the Ashland boys. So one game would end, the next game would start. I'd finish up in the locker room with one team, go back out and get ready while the other team was warming up. that could be challenging sometimes. You get a 1-point win or a 1-point loss, or you get your butt kicked, or you kick somebody's butt.
You gotta shake it off real quick.
Yeah, you gotta shed that and re-gear and clear your mind and get after it.
Yeah.
Now we did set a record that I didn't like much, and we lost. We're the only team that ever lost back-to-back games. We had a boys and a girls session at the auditorium. We lost both of them, but we also won a few back-to-back. So
yeah,
the girls were Eastern Maine runners-up several times. The boys were Eastern Maine champions, state of Maine runners-up. Our boys beat a very big and talented Lubec team, and as we listened to the broadcasters, MPVN broadcasters before the game, one of the statements was the Allagash Bobcats will need to play near perfect basketball to keep people in the stands.
Oh.
Lubec is talented enough to play and win in the next division or higher.
This was a state championship game?
This is the Eastern Maine Championship.
Eastern Maine Championship game, okay.
Yeah, Lubec.
Yeah.
So supposedly they were too big, too fast, and too good for us. And what I had noticed as a coach and what I had my team paying attention to is most of Lubec's offense came on second shots. They were big. They shot horrible until they got an offensive board and
just put it back in.
Yeah. So we decided we were going to box out like demons, and end of the first period we were up 3. End of the second period we're up 7. End of the third period we're up 14. End of the fourth period we're up 14. So we win it. We played even in the last quarter.
Yeah.
Because I think a couple of my kids started to get a little nervous. My underclassmen got a little nervous, started to realize, holy cow, this is real. We're in trouble. We might win this. But until our veterans kind of got a hold of them and whispered in their ear and got them straightened out again.
What seed were you guys going into? Were you?
We were number 1. No, I'm sorry. We were number 2. They were number 1.
Yeah.
They were number 1.
They must have been like the favorites all year.
They were the favorites. Yeah, they were supposed to win it hands down in the States as well.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be. They truly thought that those announcers, I mean, after the game got going, they realized that the Allagash Bobcats were a pretty solid club as well.
Yeah.
Fundamentally sound, took care of the basketball, didn't turn it over, boxed out, drew a lot of fouls over the back, that sort of stuff. They started giving us our just due and just credit, but Lubec, they did say that Lubec could play in C and maybe win the C division,
yeah.
And that because they had a lot of C on their schedule in that coastal region, Calais and those teams, things like that.
Right.
You know.
What year was this?
This was 1981.
1981. So no state championship though, right?
Yep.
For you guys won the states?
No, we didn't. We that was one of my half times I wished I could get back.
Yeah.
I had. We played Buckfield. When we went into the Lubec game, it was kind of like old hat. We've been here before. We were there the year before. We'd lost to Ordiali's group, Mitchell Beal. They won the states, and we had a rugged semifinal game with them, Jonesport Beals, in the year before. And so we play the Lubec team. So it was kind of, it was a big game, but my guys were not overly nervous about it.
Yeah.
When we got to the States, we had teams volunteering to send us cheerleaders. We were like the Cinderella gang, and everybody wanted a piece of us. And there was a lot of hoopla. And I, as a young coach, didn't do a good job of minimizing or guarding us against too much outside distraction.
Right.
And so I think we played a little more nervously, like cautiously. I mean, we were always pretty good at taking care of the ball, but we played hard and we played loose, and if we did toss it away or we made a turnover on a transition, we shook it off and went back and played hard on D and tried to get another one.
Yeah.
We almost seemed to be playing too careful, and at halftime. This is my big regret. At halftime, I think if I were to appeal to them in the sense of their hometown pride, Allagash being the smallest town that has a basketball program in New England, smallest inland school to win a championship, blah, blah, blah. Instead, I should have chewed on them.
Yeah.
I really think I should have get after their pride and asked them where their heads were and done, maybe kick the trash can or two or whatever. But I went the other way. I went with trying to calm their nerves, and things didn't change at halftime.
Right.
And even though the game was a 10-point game, we lost, and we were respectable. In the back of my mind, I always think that team wasn't as good as Lubeck, and we just somehow mentally we didn't approach it with the same tenacity and the same confidence,
Right.
or play with the same kind of pride. So
That's the one that eats at you right there.
Yeah, I want that halftime back. I want that 10 minutes back.
How much you guys wound up losing by?
10.
Oof. Who were some of the guys on your team at that point? Who were some of your players?
Wade Kelly.
Okay.
Some people might have heard of Wade Kelly. He has Kelly guide camps now. His dad is Tyler Kelly. Jerry McBriarty. He's a physician's assistant now. Those two were my main people. Cecil Hafford, who we used to call him Cease the Beast, and now he's more of a beast than he was then. He was tall and skinny. Now he's a
beast now.
Oh, he's the beast now. Do you know Cecil?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And Cease was pretty rugged. So we had some size of our own.
Yeah.
Kendall O'Leary, he's a captain in the armed forces now, or was. I'm not sure if he's retired. But no, those boys. Those were good people. Wade Kelly, probably pound for pound, was one of the toughest basketball players. He's one of the first basketball players I coached. And through all of the years and all of the eras and all of the people, if I was to start a team, I'd start with Wade Kelly.
Oh, wow. That's saying a lot right there.
Yeah, and I had some good people.
Yeah.
I've had some good people.
Absolutely.
Very good people at the collegiate and the high school level.
Right.
But Wade, a whole lot of fight.
Yeah.
A whole lot of fight.
That's crazy.
And a great teamate.
Yeah. How about on the girls' side? What was your Allagash tenure on the girls' side?
The girls' side was I came in when Star McBriarty and Katie O'Leary were seniors, and they just came off of. I'm not sure if they had won the states the year before or not, but that was their senior year. I was a rookie. They were seniors. They might have taken advantage of Coach Murph.
Yeah.
I wasn't used to coaching girls, so I was a little tentative about that until I figured, you know what, players are players, and they're going to get it the same way everybody else gets it, So, so with the girls, we were Eastern Maine runners-up a couple times. We lost to East Grand. East Grand was putting out some good basketball teams there.
Small
the state championship
right
was either Allagash or East Grand.
Yeah.
And they were kind of alternating years. And we lost twice to them in the Eastern Maine finals. And I think had I been a more experienced coach, I'd have got more out of Katie. Katie O'Leary was as good a player in the county for women as there was. Liz Coffin from Ashland went to UMaine and played for UMaine, and I think Katie could kick her ass. And Katie and Star used to make money off the canoers. Like the sports would come off the river and they'd kind of dock, and there used to be a store across from the basketball courts outside the gym, and they'd be shooting, and they would con some males into playing them 2-on-2 and take their money.
Yeah.
And take their money. Katie was about 6'1", and she could shoot it from the perimeter, she could shoot it inside, and she could handle. I mean, she was really a good basketball player.
Right.
Yeah. So they took money from those sports. Yeah.
Real quick, tell me, what was a Friday night in Allagash like? High school basketball season. What was the atmosphere like in the gym out there?
Oh, I don't think anybody could understand. I as a young coach, I don't even think I understood how intimidating our gym was until I got out and a few more coaching years, and then I look back and say, that had to be a bastard of a place to go play, because we had a little tiny stage, kind of about the size of Fort Kent stage.
Yeah.
And then all we had after that were seats around the court, and our court was already small, and it had one of those dotted lines. So that when you took it out, it wasn't the sideline that was out, it was the dotted line that was out. So you could have enough room to move around.
Yeah.
And you had all these guys that have come out of the woods, they're putting their feet down, their boots, their work boots and stuff, and so their feet are literally on the floor.
Just puddles everywhere.
Well, no puddles, but there's just no room.
Tripping hazards.
No tripping hazards.
Yeah.
Right? No room. The smell of cedar and chainsaw oil and loud. It was very loud, and they loved their Bobcats.
Yeah.
And they fought hard and yelled hard and cheered hard for their Bobcats, and we were fortunate. Not a lot of people wanted to come place in our gym.
I bet. That ride must have been terrible for some of these opposing schools getting out there.
Lubeck would come up and play us 2 games one year. We'd travel to them and play them 2 games the next year.
Yeah.
Jackman would come up. When we would go to Lubeck for 2, Jackman would come to us for 2, and then it all swapped around. So, and then we played Easton, Wisdom, those sort of schools, the Class C and D schools that were in the area then. Yeah.
Would have been easier today. A lot more Class D schools around at the moment. Huh?
Oh yeah.
How long was your overall tenure there? About
8 years.
8 years.
8 years. The girls, 3 Eastern Maine runners up. The boys, an Eastern Maine championship, state of Maine runner up. A couple of semifinal games. That one I talked about with the Jonesport Beals gang. That was big.
Yeah.
It was a great place to get started, because I was a young coach, ambitious as hell, aggressive as hell, stubborn as hell, and so were they.
Yeah.
So in fact, the first 2 weeks I was on in the school, I was their phys ed teacher as well as their social studies teacher, and it was fall, so I said, we're going to play soccer and phys ed. Well, I got a lot of people standing just like this during phys ed class.
Yeah.
So I put up with that for a couple of classes, and then I lost my temper, and we went in the gym and we had a come to Jesus talk. And they said, we're not and some of these guys I love right to death to this day, but I said, what's up? I said, you're all good athletes. You could be good at this sport. Well, we don't want this to become a soccer school. We're a basketball school.
Yeah.
I said, well, wouldn't it be awful if you got good at 2 sports? I said, I'm a basketball guy too. I want to win basketball championships, but how about you try this sport out and see if you're any good at it and see where it goes. I said, but when it comes basketball season, trust me, nobody's going to want to play basketball or coach basketball or be any more successful in basketball than myself.
Right.
And so 2 weeks of being real stubborn and standing with their arms like so, they started to play, and we started to understand each other, and the trust grew, and the boys and the girls both, but the boys more because the boys needed some attention. They felt like they had been put on the back burner during the girls' championship run, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
So Allagash was stop 1 as a head coach.
Yeah.
Then came UMFK.
Yeah, from Class D to UMFK.
I know, it's like
kabang.
Yeah, that's quite the jump right there. So how'd you want to get in that job?
Jim Elias got elected to be state representative and had to go away for a year. And so I was already working at the university coaching men's soccer. So when I graduated from the university in '75, spring, Lowell Osgood hired me to coach the men soccer team in the fall. So I was coaching the former year's teammates my first year out of college.
Yeah.
And so I coached soccer at UMFK for about 20 years.
Was that long you were the coach?
Yeah.
Wow.
16 years, because 4 years, 20 year stay, 4 years as a player, 16 as a coach. And so that was going on. Okay, where were we? What were we after?
Just how you got to UMFK.
Oh, yes. Okay, so there was a tie there already.
Mm-hmm.
And so Peter Caron was an acting dean of students, and Jim Elias, he needed to find an interim AD / basketball coach. And it was time for me to make a move, because if I was going to make a career move, I was been there 8 years, and I felt like I'd done what I could do. The school was getting smaller, it might be closing, so I said yes, even though it was an interim job. So I worked for him a year, and the interim job turned into the full-time job, and 2 years, after 2 years there and getting lucky to recruit guys like Jeff Pillsbury, Juan Hernandez, Jim McCluskey, John O'Shea, Mike Owens, we had quite a good.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, because nowadays these coaches can get away with recruiting right from their computer. They got all these recruiting sites and recruiting agencies. They don't have to go anywhere. A little bit different back then.
Oh yeah.
So what?
And to be honest, Thomas, it was when I got the job and I took the job, I didn't realize how much I loved the job, because now the gym was mine.
Great gym, by the way, too.
Yeah, the sports teams were mine,
yeah.
Both men and in soccer and basketball. So it was up to me to make them succeed or fail, you know. And I was starting some women's basketball. I started pushing to get women's basketball up, but there was just me. I was the AD, men's soccer, men's basketball, assistant women's volleyball coach, wow. Gym facilitator, SID, sports information director. You know, I mean, all of it. Yeah. You know.
And you had to recruit.
Trainer.
Yeah.
And then I had to recruit.
Yeah.
And it was some of the best times of my coaching career and memory, and some of the worst.
Right.
Because at the end of it, I can remember being so tired after about 8 years, because I was recruiting for everybody.
Yeah.
I went into the president and I asked for one man. I said, we had a person who just graduated a couple years before, who wanted to be a coach, and he'd done a good job with it. He could be. And he was the dorm director or something. So I said, why can't Mark Scott become the associate AD in charge of women's programs? And that would cut my workload in half. And then I said, because right now we're all making playoffs and we're all doing this. I said, but I can't keep recruiting for 5 or 6 teams. Yeah. I said, I have no life. I don't know what day it is some days, you know. Yeah. And the president at that time says, we can't afford that. So 2 days later, I handed in my resignation and said, this is the worst day of my life and the best day of my life. I had tears in my eyes, but I was spent.
What year was this when you stepped down?
92. I was spent. I missed. My kids were in. My daughter played soccer. I saw her play once. Her final game for a year, her senior year. Yeah. Ben was in track. I didn't see him play. He was in basketball. I finally coached him in basketball later on. But I was missing out. I mean, I was on the road constantly, and my wife was doing everything. She was being the mother, the father, the carpenter, the housekeeper, everything. It wasn't fair. Right. And now, have you looked in that gym to see how many people are doing things in there?
Yeah, they got too many people now.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that they've got too many people doing too many things, too many little things.
Right.
But give me one helper, I might still be there, you know. Yeah. And those are some of my fondest memories too. I have some great soccer memories. I've got lifetime friends, people that were freshmen my first year coaching soccer, who come back here. Came back here every spring to fish. Ended up bringing their kids whenever their kids turned 10 years old. Now their kids are all gone to college, or the youngest of them is now a pharmacist. Relationships with those two guys. This is how special these two guys are. They came fishing here. One's from New Jersey and one's from Tennessee. They would come back every spring to go fishing after they graduated with Coach Murph. Like, we became friends. And now I feel like we're more like brothers. Right. But I bought this house, and I called them in the spring and said, listen, boys, I can't go fishing. I got carpenters at my house. We're putting on siding. There's electricians rewiring stuff. I can't go fishing. I can't pick up and go fishing because it was usually about this time of year right now, like June 10th through the 15th, we'd head into the forest. I said, okay, Coach, we'll catch up again next year. We'll do it next year. 2 days later, I'm up a ladder working. They drive in with their Suburban, and they had all their tools. He was a carpenter. He brought all of his tools. They unloaded their car. They drove from Tennessee to help Coach Murph.
Yeah.
That touched me.
Right.
It really touched me.
Right.
And to this day, those guys are tight. We are more like brothers.
Right.
Yeah, and that's just from coaching. That's a relationship I got from coaching. And that coaches never get paid enough for the hours they put in.
Yeah.
They never do. But the rewards and the payment they get are those kind of relationships, or those kind of invitations to be in somebody's wedding, invitations to go to a baptism,
right.
invitations to share in stuff that should be family only, and they treat you like family.
Right.
You know.
And it seems like you established a lot of those types of relationships from your UMFK days, because I've been to a bunch of the Hall of Fame inductions since they started doing that, and everyone seems to have some type of tie to you or mentions you when they speak.
Been in this town a long time, been in this valley a long time. I've been lucky enough to coach. All my coaching has taken place between Allagash and Fort Kent High School and University.
Yeah.
And I've always said that the valley kids are the hardest working kids in the county.
Right.
All you got to do is give them a scheme, teach them well, get them to trust you, and actually, Tom, I was really fortunate. I mean, I was fortunate that I ended up with Jeff Pillsbury and Juan Hernandez and Jimmy McCluskey. Jim and Jeff were already here when I showed up. They were sophomores, and they'd come off an ugly basketball season the year before. But we got Juan in second semester of the next year. Started to recruit some height. But then when that ended, I walked across the street. There were 11 seniors, 11 seniors my first year at the high school, and 2 sophomores, Lon Berthium and Brad Courier.
So this would have been
11 seniors and 2 sophomores, and that's kind of an ugly situation to inherit, you know, because you got 11 guys that think they know it all. Yeah. They haven't won Billy squat in years, but yet because they're 11 seniors, they played together for X number of years, they think they got it whooped, you know.
Yeah.
So that year was probably my most rewarding year, with the least to show for it for anybody to notice, because I showed up there with 11 seniors, and I watched them the year before, and I actually coached them the year before against Caribou when Lloyd was sick. Lloyd Susie was sick, and so I substituted and I coached a game, and we gave them a run. We almost beat Caribou, and we weren't supposed to. So I inherit the 11 seniors, and I try to teach them, you know, each game's got a plan.
Right.
Everybody's got a forte. Everybody's got a weakness. This is your role. They weren't used to that sort of detail, I guess.
Right.
So what would happen is, we'd get into a game early in the season, and they get down by 5 or 6 points, and all of a sudden they throw out the strategy, they throw out the game plan, and they're off and running on their own merits, you know, and so, or what they thought were merits, and so we're getting our asses whooped. So we open up with a 30-point loss to Holton. Later on in the first part of the year, we lose by 30 to Caribou. Later on, we lose by 30 to Presque Isle.
Yeah.
And then we're in a Callis game, but we're getting a little better. We're starting to beat some teams that we should beat, and we're getting a little better. But we're still not sticking to it. We're not grinding out the game plan against these bigger teams. We're playing into their hands and panicking and getting too much free for all play, blah blah blah. And so we're in a tight game with Callis, and we're giving them a run. And Callis. That's when Callis was winning state championships. Yeah. So we're giving them a run. and it's a 5-point game with about 2 left, and we've got some momentum. Something happens, and my good friend now, Travis Delisle, was a player, one of those seniors, threw an F-bomb out at a referee, and here comes the T.
That doesn't sound like Travis right there.
Here comes the T and the foul shots and the possession and the score, and we went from being down 5 to being down, I think, 9. So, boom.
Yeah.
You know? So I suspend Travis for a game. And he comes to me begging me not to suspend him. But I have no doubts he needs to be suspended, because right now, if he's not suspended, then everybody's going to think they can all do the same thing.
Yeah.
No discipline. Things go rough. Things get tough. Just say what you want, throw a temper tantrum, get the tea, go sit down and mope, you know?
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to have it. And so he skipped his game, and we lost that game. But when he came back, he was smarter, he worked harder, and everybody, he was the leader, and everybody stepped in place. And in the second half of the season, Tom, we beat Caribou by 4 at home. We beat Prescal by 4 at home. We beat Holton the last game of the season. And if we win, we go to the tournament for the first time in 17 years.
It's been that long.
17 years. And so we turned 3 30-point defeats into 3 really monstrously point-worthy wins.
Definitely, I would say so.
And we won in overtime against a Matt Rosignol coached team with Marty Bouchard and Terry Cummings. Marty Bouchard's son was Mr. Basketball a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And his daughter, Mrs.
Yeah.
So where'd Marty go to high school?
Holton.
Matt Rosnell coached at Holton?
He did.
I didn't know that.
He did.
Okay.
He did, yeah. And so the Brent Marquis, Travis Delisle, Kerry Michaud gang went to the first tournament in 17 years. And it was one of the happiest friggin' times ever.
Did you guys sneak in like as the 8th seed or?
We were the 8th seed.
Yeah.
But
Didn't matter though, just getting there, right?
Did not matter.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, if I could have ever unlocked whatever it was Kerry Michaud had for a lock on his intensity level, we went down and played with them for 3 quarters. We played the number 1 team.
Who'd you guys play?
Oh boy, I don't recall. I'm seeing their uniforms red.
Dexter maybe, or
no, not Dexter. Travis can tell you in a second, and I can too, but I'm just drawing a blank on it. But if Kerry at 6'1" could play like he was 6'6", 6'8", he was a monstrously good athlete.
Yeah.
But so low keyed, it was unfriggin' believable. It used to drive me crazy. Anyway, but that was one of my most rewarding seasons, and all I got out of it was a tournament qualification.
Yeah.
But you think about what got set up there, like those guys figured out that if you stick together and you play the game plan out and you grind it out, and you don't panic and you don't do stupid things, something good might happen. So it took them a long time to learn to trust me, but when they finally did, good things happened. And then Lonnie was starting to start as a sophomore. I plugged him in, and he sat a senior down, and that wasn't anytime you made a move, a senior had to sit down.
Yeah.
So but finally people just figured it out, and Lon as a sophomore started playing well for us and helped us a lot. And then the next year I put 2 freshmen, not one, but 2 freshmen in the starting lineup the next year, Corey and Ryan.
Yeah.
What
were those guys like as freshmen?
Well, here's what happens when you have freshmen. When you have freshmen, I always said, when they play like juniors, you got to love them.
Yeah.
When they play like 8th graders, you still better love them,
Yeah.
but you better tell them they're playing like eighth graders.
Right.
You know, you gotta, because they're playing as freshmen because they are playing better than juniors, or they wouldn't be there. You know,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't have a freshman on your team unless you're starting him,
Right.
and unless he's getting enough game time. Because if you don't and you sit him and he doesn't play, but he's on varsity for status, then you're ruining the kid.
Yeah, you're doing nothing
You're hurting
for
the
him.
kid.
Yeah.
He's stalemated. He's staying right there, skill wise and experience wise. So, but those two, they were. It seems bold, but they both in drills. Ryan top shooting guard every drill. Corey top rebounder every drill. They didn't just play well and as good as most. They were probably better than most.
Right.
You know, that Ryan was a physical specimen of an athlete, even as a freshman. Corey was no athlete at all, but he was all friggin' heart, determination, fight, grit.
Yeah.
Smart, wily, you know. As a freshman, he acted like a senior because he had all kinds of little tricks up his sleeve to rebound.
Right.
Ended up with more rebounds than he did points. He got 1,000 of each or more. Ryan could have been a 2,000-point scorer if I hadn't set him down so much in blowout games. I mean, he wouldn't see the fourth quarter a half a dozen times a year. He wouldn't get. And then, you know, he came so close to getting two. But you know what? We never worried about it.
Right.
He never said a word.
You had no ego or anything like
Nothing.
that? Yeah.
Zero. That's why I say I was lucky.
Yeah.
You know?
So this would have been 93?
Yeah, 93, 94.
So luckily you kind of figured things out for that 92 team as the season ended, but then you lost them all, so you had to kind of start over.
And then I had a bunch of youngsters.
So what did you guys do, win-loss, that second year you were in Fort Kent?
I think we went every year that Ryan and Corey were playing.
Yeah.
So we might have went in around 6 or 7. We went in around 3. The highest seed we ever got was a 3.
Yeah.
But the county again was rugged in basketball.
Stacked at that point, right? Caribou was super
Presque
tough.
Isle, Hodgson was winning state championships. Limestone had like friggin' monster scoring teams.
Yeah.
Fort Fairfield, Caribou. I mean, again, you go out, if you didn't play well, you got your ass kicked.
Yeah.
You either played hard and played well, or you got your ass kicked. Every game, every you know, we're still playing the Calluses, we're still playing formidable opponents all over the place. And those guys were meeting the challenge. I mean, I remember Ryan, we went down to Callis, he's a friggin' freshman, he drops 5 straight threes. 5 straight threes. Because they leave him alone, they say, well, who's this kid? You know, and they overplayed Lonnie, and Lonnie just would pull 2, kick over, Ryan drain it. 5 in a row, and you're thinking, hello. You know, you might want to start guarding that kid, but if you don't want it, we're going to keep taking those shots, you know? And so, no, it was there was one point, I think for any team to be really successful, the players have to trust their coach. And one of the biggest compliments that I ever received from a team was in Lonnie's senior year. Ryan would have been a sophomore then, Ryan and Corey. We're playing against Limestone, and they are later on state champs that year. They're a high-scoring group. Run it, gun it, and score it. And so, Tommy, we're in a high school basketball game, and the score is 81-80 with 3.5 to go in the game.
Yeah.
81-80.
That's rare.
So, yeah. And so I'm trying. We ran, but I didn't feel like we could run with them. That I thought we had to at times slow down and pound it inside and take a little more clock to do things. But the flow of the game just kept both teams going. So it's 81-80, and without calling a timeout, we're up 1, 3.5 to go. I call for ice. Now, it's kind of a bold thing because 3.5 minutes is a long time with a 1-point lead. It's not a 3-point lead with 1 minute to go, and it's not a 5-point lead with 30 seconds to go and you're putting ice on it. It's 1-point lead with a half a quarter or close to it. Those friggin' guys didn't bat an eyelash, didn't frown, didn't react. Lonnie pulled it out, screamed it out, pointed some fingers, got people positioned, and we start running ice.
Yeah.
We win the game 98-84.
Wow.
Lon was a state free throw champ.
Yeah.
Ryan was a state free throw champ. And so Limestone just liked to run so much. They had no patience to play defense.
Yeah.
And as soon as we started doing ice, they didn't just play tough, they just started hacking.
Yeah.
And so, and that was the other thing. I knew we were in bonus already, so I said, okay, Ryan and Lonnie, you're going to make some free throws. And I think Jason Neto was in that threesome, and he was a pretty good free throw shooter, but those two were like friggin'. So I think we made one more field goal. They made a field goal and 2 foul shots. And we made between Lon and Ryan, they made 15 straight free throws without a miss.
Oh, in the last 3 minutes
And a half. Yeah. So 98-84 was the end of the game.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, I know, it was crazy. In that same game, we're in a timeout. It's one of my famous Lon Berthium, how alert this kid is. I always take too long in timeouts. They always call us out, and I'm always yapping, and I don't hear them call us out, but the kids hear us call us out. So he's trying to listen to me, and he hears the referee calling us out, and the referee hands the ball to them. So they try to sneak the ball in by rolling it, right? And Lonnie sees that in the corner of his eye. He leaves the huddle. I mean, he just all of a sudden just jumped out of the huddle, bolted across the court, dove, and as the guy was bent over to pick up the rolling inbounds pass because they needed time, the clock was against them.
Yeah.
Lonnie slides by him, steals it, tucks it under his arm, and calls it a timeout. And the other 4 players and his coach are standing there going like that.
Yeah.
They're like, wow.
Yeah.
So okay, all right. I think we got this one now.
Yeah.
So that's my famous Lon Berthium alert story. He was incredible.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about Lon because we had Jason on a couple weeks ago, Jason Neto, and he was telling me about Ryan Martin and just the kind of teammate he was. What kind of teammate was Lon? Or what, actually, to you didn't have a teammate relationship with him. You had a coach-player relationship with him. So what was your relationship like as him, and what was he like?
Well, Lonnie was super competitive, fiercely competitive. Very, very talented, very skilled. I wouldn't say he was real fluid. He had a kind of a stiff gait to him and stuff, but his finishes were strong and smooth. He shot the 3 really well. Was probably more suited to be a 2-guard, and that's what he played in college, I believe. He ended up in the 2-guard at Farmington. Yeah. But you could always depend on him to be a fierce defender. You could always depend on him to not be afraid of taking big shots. He didn't hide when the game got tight. He'd come forward when the game was on the line. I think Ryan learned a lot from him. Ryan was a hell of a player in his own right. Yeah. But Ryan was more athletic and probably more gifted, but also worked at his game. But things came a little easier to Ryan. I think Lonnie taught him a lot about working at things and getting better and not settling, and so in that sense, I'm not sure what kind of a teammate he was. I know that he did get in the ear of his teammates at times, which didn't bother me because he wasn't disgracing them in public or berating them in public, but he might be saying, get your ass in gear. It's time to play some defense and stop missing that screen. You're supposed to hit that screen sooner or whatever. So kind of a coach on the floor, and you knew he was going to be a coach later because that's just the way he carried himself.
And he's doing all right in that regard.
Yes, he's doing super good in that regard. He's the other one. So they said, who would your backcourt be? Wade Kelly, Lon Berthium. Yeah. It'd be a crowded backcourt because I've had some great guards. Ryan, Juan, Pill. Yeah, they're all Hall of Famers in their own sense. Right. I mean.
Another question about Lon. So when you kind of think back and think about coaches that have been at schools for a long time, you think of people that have systems and you're going to play the way I want you guys to play. Yeah. But Lon kind of had the green light. Where it kind of seems like you might have been ahead of your time and just giving your players the green light to just get shots up at will.
Yeah. Well, I always thought if you can outrun teams, outrun teams. If you beat them on the boards and you can outlet clean and you can run and get advantage, then 3-on-2 is a whole lot better than 5-on-5 or whatever. 3-on-2, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 is an advantage. We used to think 3-on-3 was an advantage because there's too much floor space to guard. You know, so I mean, we weren't reckless and we were smart about things. We transitioned and we were efficient at it. Because if it wasn't there, we were smart enough. Lonnie was smart enough. Ryan was smart enough. Corey was smart enough to pull it out, and we ran a pretty good half-court set. So, you know, whichever way you wanted to make us play, we felt like we had the skills and the knowledge to match up and get it done. I personally haven't had a chance to watch Lonnie's teams play, but I've heard good things about him. I want to watch his teams play. I've watched game clips, I've seen highlights of some of his better players. He's called me and talked to me about when he had the freshman that was ended up being, I think, Miss Basketball. He was talking to me about her as a freshman, how frustrated she was and he was at times with each other, and it was a matter of I think she was feeling more pressure than she should have, and so we talked about that. I think hiring Neely to have a female mind and trying to understand that psyche, that young girl's psyche, was good. Yeah. And has continued to be good. Neely's a great addition to that coaching staff. Yeah. Yeah, but Lon, I think what Lonnie does, what his strength is, he plays to people's strengths and keeps them out of situations that they can't handle. Right. You know, that's really what every coach's goal is. Brad Stevens has done it in an ultimate way with the Celtics. Right.
So in terms of your four-can tenure, you can kind of look at it as you had the long berth U teams, which you would have graduated with 94.
Yep.
And then Ryan and Corey after that.
96.
Yeah, and probably the golden years of four-camp basketball, I would think, just in terms of success and the players you pumped out.
We made, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 years of tournament play in a row. We actually made postseason a couple times, but didn't get to the tournament floor. We lost in the play-ins, you know, the I don't know how it was back then, maybe 7-11, 8-9, those sort of games. So again, that was a good run, and that's coming away from the college, and we just got done being NAIA District 1 Final Four contestants. You know, it's and we at Fort Kent at the university, that group of guys, that's when the 3-point line was instituted. When we were my second year there, the 3-point line came out, and we ended up in that year in 1987, and then going on to coach Lonnie and Ryan, the 3-point line became important. We ended up, I think we were in the top 5 nationally in 3-point shooting. I think Juan was in the top 2. Mark Stillwagon was the leading field goal percentage shooter in the post, 72% or something from the post. We led the state in rebounding average per game. We led the state in scoring per game. But I wouldn't, the only reason why I bring all these stats up is you would think that we ran reckless and hard. We ran hard, but we didn't run reckless. I don't like helter-skelter. There was even though it didn't appear that way to most, there were some rules and some scheme to the running.
Right. So you mentioned just playing with pace, and then you kind of brought that to the high school teams. You guys were getting points up in a hurry with those teams. So you had like the long Berthium teams. Then when Ryan and Corey were junior, at any point did you feel like, all right, we have a chance to compete for a state championship, or were things just competitive? And you...
No, I felt like whenever we lost in the tournament, to answer your question a little bit backwards, whenever we lost in the tournament, those teams went on to the state game. Camden Rockport beat us, went on to the state game. Orono beat us, went on to the state game and won the states. So we knew when we played those semifinal games against those teams that the champion was going to come out of our bracket, was going to come out of that game. I could sense it. And we lost tight games to them. They were disappointing, but truly, and I guess, Thomas, one of my faults is that I never looked too far ahead with anything. Like, I didn't look at that team and say, I've got to get that to a state championship team or we failed, you know. But I did know when I had a good team, and I tried to take one game at a time. I know you hear that from everybody, but didn't want to get too excited, too high, too low. I was pretty intense in a game, but always ready for the next game. No matter what happens, you gotta move on from it. If it's great, it's great. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out. You gotta have enough composure to rebound mentally, physically, evaluate the next team, and come out and play as hard and as smart as you can. You know. The thing about, even though we scored a lot of points, and it appeared as though we did run a bit. We could run. If you wanted to run, we could run. But we used to run a motion offense, a warrior, we called it warrior, where we'd have a back screen to the block to Matt Thibodeau, and then the point guard would screen to the block to Corey Thibodeau. And that meant Ryan screened down, and Ryan was a great rebounder and post-up guard. Yeah. So Corey would catch on the foul line, and we used to run that motion and get shots off really quickly and shoot a very high percentage from it. I know that we were playing Caribou. We were down 17 one time. Well, we're down, I think it was the big game you watched. Were we down 17 at
17 at the half, yeah.
Yeah, and so if you watch that again, you watch. Because what I bitched about and threw a tantrum about at halftime was, I said, where the hell's our process, boys? Right. You're jacking up shots. Nobody knows when a shot's going up. We got no offensive board because nobody's reading each other. I said, what the hell happened? Where's our game going? What's this? Yeah. I said, you can come back in this game by just running your offense and getting a few turnovers and layups. And so if you watch in the second half, had we not turned it over a couple times, we'd have wiped out the 17-point lead in the third quarter. Yeah. Because we got it down to 6 after 3, I think it was, and we had 2 or 3 possessions where we had it under 6 and should have and could have wiped out the whole 17-point deficit in one quarter. Yeah. Yeah. Did you also notice that in that game that Ryan had to go up and take the ball out of somebody's hand? That's because the scoreboard showed us being ahead.
Yeah, and the announcer said it too, like working up one. And,
yeah, but we weren't ahead. We were tied, and I was screaming, "We're tied! We're tied!" And
so was Ryan just going to hold the ball? Like,
no, Ryan knew. He knew. So he ran up to the person who was kind of shielding the ball, and he said, "Give me it!" And he just ripped it out of his hands. If you notice, he was up, he yelled, and he just took the ball, and the guy just, then he sinks it, bam, we win, So
was that your first win in Caribou?
So my wife and I had an argument. She says, "What was all the big fuss about? You guys were up 1. Why did Ryan have to go take that shot?" I said, "We weren't up 1. We were tied. We were tied." No, the board. I said, "The board was wrong." The board's not wrong. Yeah. So we had a fight. She got mad, slammed the door, went to bed.
The crowd must have been aware though, because I remember like when he hit the shot, like the Fort Kent crowd, you just see him erupt. So they must have known what was going on. Yeah. Was that your first win in Caribou as a coach?
In Caribou, no, we'd won before, but I think my alma mater gave me fits because I think that I got too hyped for my Caribou games. For instance, we got a handle on Presque. We were beating Presque with regularity. Yeah. Presque was beating Caribou with a fair amount of regularity. We couldn't beat Caribou.
Yeah, how does that work right there?
I don't know. I really think it had to do with me. Maybe overcoaching, maybe being over anxious, maybe overzealous. I don't know if you knew this or not, but we had in a 3-year stretch, and that 3-point game ended that 3-year stretch. 5 straight games with Caribou went into overtime.
Yeah, because I also saw another game
5
tape
straight
as
games.
well from the year before. Is at home. You guys beat Caribou at home. And was there some significance to that? Because I remember people like rushed the floor after the game. It was an overtime game.
Yeah.
What was the significance with that one?
Well, I think Caribou was a heavily favored team.
They had Chris Funk, right?
Yeah, they had some. They had a team that they thought could be state contenders.
Yeah.
And that was another game where people were scalping tickets, crawling in through windows, opening doors, letting people sneak in. I remember Ryan slipping and falling on the floor a couple of times because there was moisture and condensation on the ceiling, and it was dripping on the floor. And that was incredible. Oh yeah.
So, what do you have like a most memorable game from your tenure at the high school?
At the high school, the most memorable game. Probably because of the trust I found my team showed me was that limestone game.
Yeah.
That was they were worth a bundle of points because I think they were undefeated at the time.
Yeah.
So that's I mean, we had a bunch of favorites. I mean, beating Holton in game 18 the first year in overtime by 4.
After getting beat by 30 earlier that year.
That was monster good.
Yeah.
That was monster good. One of my favorite games of all time is that Husson UMFK game. I mean, that was as good a basketball as you're going to find. Juan Hernandez and Jeff Pillsbury went off for 70 points as a backcourt.
How about tough losses? You know, you mentioned the
Tournament.
How about like during that last stay at Fort Kent? Any tough losses like the Ryan Martin teams? Were those losses tough to take? Cause
The tough losses were the 2 tournament losses. I tad disappointed that we never got to an Eastern Maine championship. And the 2 times I thought the 2 best teams we put out there lost in the semifinals in Eastern Maine. And the 2 teams we lost to went on to win the states.
Yeah.
One ran the table, and the other lost in the states. So, I guess that's what's that, consolation prize or something?
Yeah, or it hurts because that could have very easily been you had you won. But.
Yeah.
How about you talked about your player experience in the auditorium back at Caribou? How about as a coach? What was coaching in the auditorium like?
Well, when I was there as the Allagash Bobcats coach, I was there with 2 teams, so I was coaching. I got plenty of experience because the girls would make it, the boys would make it.
Yeah.
But it was always special.
Yeah.
It's always friggin' special. It's just plain prideful. You know, you walk in and you know that place is known for basketball, good tournament basketball. You know that it's got a history. There's ghosts in all the alleyways and up in the, way back up in the bleachers. The basketball gods and ghosts are still hanging out there from years gone by.
Yeah.
You just feel like you get goosebumps, and it just makes you want to play. It makes you want to be as good as you can possibly be. So it was always prideful. I love the way the new place is comfortable. It's good viewing. It's great seats. But I miss the Mecca.
Yeah.
I called it the Mecca.
Yeah.
Maine's basketball Mecca.
I agree.
Yeah.
What year was your last year in Fort Kent? 99? 2000 maybe?
Maybe 2000.
Yeah.
Not sure, Thomas.
So about 8 years maybe?
My son graduated in 98, and I think I stayed on 2 more years after that. And that's when the dogs took over my mind, dog sledding. And I'd always ask kids when they got to the gym to give the basketball practice their full commitment mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And I found myself running practice and planning my next training run for my dogs in the back of my mind. So I felt like I was being a bit of a hypocrite. We were in a little bit of a low, so I thought maybe it was time for some new blood to coach and stir up the energy and talents of people. Maybe I'd outgrown my stay, and didn't have the mastery of whatever mentality was coming through the school then.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe it's time for change, and we just started a summer league. I got Dwight Hunter to be a commissioner, and we started a summer basketball league because I was always envious of Bangor having a summer league, and the kids play 16, 18 summer games against their opponents, their regular season opponents and others, you know. And so Dwight and I got this conference going, and twice a week we played board officials. So it was great. And then that's the only thing I didn't when I got done, that kind of fell off, and I wished it would have continued. I thought it was good for the county kids to have that kind of competitive. I mean, it was growth. It was like a whole friggin' summer season to grow on.
Yeah.
You know?
So then you got into dog sledding for a little bit.
Yes.
How long did that last?
12 years.
Was it just something different, like something new? Did you try to challenge you?
It was the most difficult challenge. It was one of the most challenging and difficult things I've ever done.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to understand it, to make people understand the intrinsic reward. But it taught me a lot about myself. I think it made me a stronger person.
Yep.
It almost killed me on one run. But I learned a lot about animals, about myself, and about people, and I loved it. And if I was a rich man, I'd still be doing it, but it got way too expensive in retirement to afford $700 worth of dog food a month. So that's the basic kibble, you know, not the meat, not the nutritional additives and all that stuff. So.
Yeah. And it seems like coaching just won't go away. It feels like every time, you know, you turn around, you're either coaching a middle school team or helping out at the high school. Or...
Well, the middle school stuff was because my wife and my daughter wanted their grandson and son to have good coaching, so they said. And so the first of it was I got rooked into doing some rec soccer.
Yeah.
And then the rec soccer turned into middle school soccer. And then the middle school soccer, Travis got me helping out with AYBL basketball. And then AYBL basketball became middle school basketball. And then last fall, from August to March, that crew of boys that I've been working with had lost one game, Thomas, from August to March in 2 sports. That's how good this group is.
Yeah.
And here's what's great about it. We've had better athletes, like the Ryan and Lonnie years. There were more good athletes in the cluster because we're so much smaller now. You don't have as many good athletes, or like you've got 3 or 4 good kids, and then it falls off a little bit. But this crew right here, this 8th grade group that's going to be freshmen, they like each other.
That's important right there.
And they play hard for each other.
Yeah.
The one game that they lost, they all went home, like the big 3, we call them the big 3. And their parents reported back. I didn't ask for it, but the next practice, they go, holy cow, was Evan pissed? Wasn't Colin pissed? Wasn't this one pissed? And I said, well, what'd they do? I said, nothing. They went in the rooms. They wouldn't talk. They wouldn't answer our questions. They didn't want to be bothered. And I said, well, what were they pissed about? They said they let their teammates down.
Wow.
Not a one of them pointed a finger. Every one of them said it was my fault we lost. Coach told me to do this and I didn't do it. Or coach suggested we do this and I didn't do it. Coach warned us not to do this and I did it. You know?
Yeah.
And so what I got out of that loss for them was that these guys really care about getting each other's back, you know? Right. And that can go a long friggin' ways. Yeah. A long freaking ways, yeah. So I loved it. I loved it, and they love each other. With the youngsters here, I never used it back then, but I try to get these youngsters to think about, listen, if you're the best teammate on the floor, and every one of you are trying to be the best teammate on the floor, and you're trying to be the hardest worker on the floor, what kind of performance are we all going to be giving?
Right.
I said, so that's all you got to do every day is go out and be the best teammate you can and work as hard as you can, and good things come. You know, they'll fall in place.
So coaching's not going anywhere for you. You think you're gonna keep being part of it here?
This ABYL and middle school stuff really scratched an itch hard.
You're like Larry Brown. You can't
go away.
Can't go away.
Yeah, but I'm not sure, Thomas, if maybe I've outgrown my stay. You know, like this group of youngsters I identified well with, and I think they trust me.
Yeah.
But I don't know, when they get older and they get a little bolder, maybe they won't.
We'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell.
All right. So before we get up out of here, I just want to do some quick rapid fire. Just the first answer that comes to mind here. We're just going to go through a bunch of random things, just some stuff I jotted down real quick. So it can be from your playing days or your coaching days.
Okay.
Favorite gym?
UMFK.
All right, I agree with that one. Last second shot. Any player you've ever had who you drawing the play up for?
I'm drawing up the play for the play.
Who's it going to?
Lon Berthium.
Okay. Did you have a favorite coach to coach against? Was there someone you just got up for? Then
Prescott.
Prescott. Prescott? Okay.
Yeah.
Who was the biggest recruit that you ever got to come to UMFK? Like, who was your prize?
Most successful recruit?
Yeah, or just the one that meant the most to the program, you think?
Juan Hernandez.
Okay. Best home court. So you had Allagash, UMFK, Fort Kent.
Best home court advantage was definitely Allagash.
Okay.
It was hell to pay when you come in there.
Definitely. Greatest game you ever? Well, I'm guessing probably the state championship game that you guys won at the buzzer. Maybe the greatest game you ever in.
No, I don't identify much with that. That one's not. I mean, it's awfully. I was there. I'm part of it. I'm proud of it. But probably the Holton game, the one that sent the team to the tournament for the first time in 17 years.
All right.
That was pretty prideful, that one.
So you've got quite the coaching tree of guys that have played for you in an hour coaching. If you could join any one of your former players' staffs, which coaching staff would you join?
Wow. Mike Hart's got 500 wins in Rhode Island. He was a collegiate point guard for me.
Yeah.
He and John O'Shea teamed up. That'd be a good one. I sat on their bench. I went to visit, and they put me on the bench and had me run a couple timeouts. Lonnie, I'd like to sit closer to Lonnie and listen to him. I don't know as I'd want to be any of their assistants, but I would love to sit in and be close enough to hear the minds working and grinding out strategy. Yeah.
Who's the best player you've ever coached against?
Coached against?
Like who gave you nightmares the night before, knowing you had to get your team ready to play against them?
You know what? I was never too intimidated.
No.
No. We've played against a lot of good people, but I always felt like we had an answer.
Yeah.
We had an answer.
That's a good answer right there.
Yeah.
So on a lot of episodes in the past, I've talked about the pickup basketball scene in Fort Kent because I used to go to Sunday morning basketball with my dad growing up.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so
Hack League,
right? So you're a captain. Who are your 5 guys you're going to pick up?
Joey Bard.
Okay.
Travis Delisle.
Yeah.
Well, obviously myself.
Yeah.
One of the Martin boys. And I don't recall anymore. Who was... I don't know. I take those 4 against any 5, I guess.
You're the first
Your dad, let me tell you, your dad earned my respect. I was watching him grow up, and he worked himself into a good basketball player. He did. I don't know if he had a lot of guidance, but he put his time in, and you could see him get better every year. And you could see he loved the game, and he plays with passion, and he still plays with passion.
He's 59. He'll still get picked up. Like someone will still pick him on his team to this day.
Yeah. And he'll contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's the best shooter, actual pure shooter you've ever coached or had on your teams?
Rhino.
Okay.
Well, I take it back. I would love to see this a 3-point contest between Ryan, Pill, and Juan.
Yeah.
And I think Juan would win it.
Okay.
Yeah. But Ryan might have a little more range.
Yeah.
But if you're just talking strictly threes in an arc, I think Juan no. Okay. But I tell you what, it would be quite a war.
Yeah.
It'd be quite a contest.
And then my last one right here. What's the biggest halftime freak out you've ever had on your team because you were just pissed that they weren't performing well? Was it the Caribou game?
The Caribou game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Lauren Gee will tell you that he agrees with that.
Yeah.
But there was a point in time when the Berthums bought me a metal clipboard because I was having so many halftime temper tantrums. And I wouldn't, and sometimes we were ahead, but we were playing what I call less than our best basketball and getting away with it. And so we didn't have to be behind to catch a tongue lashing or a chewing out. And what players learn to do too is in that, you know how the high school locker room is, you go through the hallway, little alleyway rather, and then you open the door. Well, they learned to put all of their gear way out back, because as soon as I went in, if I was pissed, I'd start kicking things. So satchels, bags, whatever. If you had, you know, some sort of musical device or headphones or whatever, sometimes those didn't make it through halftime. So,
that's funny.
And used to be bets on, will the clipboard come out or will the clipboard be in two pieces? And so there were people who would exchange money at halftime on that. So anyway, but no, the Caribou game was,
it worked. It worked. You guys won. So.
Launched it. I was launched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question here. So we have a segment that we always on the show on. It's called. It's pretty serious. It sounds more serious than what it probably is, but it's called "When You Die, What Jersey Do You Want Buried in the Grave with You?" So which one do you want to bring to you? Which coaching stint means the most to you? Which one would you take to the grave with you?
I'd want them all.
Yeah.
I'd want them all because truly, every coaching stint, Allagash, MFK, and the high school Warriors, they're all special. I mean, I love them all to this day. You know, and I know that's probably a cop-out kind of answer, but I'd take them all. In fact, I'm trying to get jerseys from all the teams that I've coached. Yeah. Kind of, I thought it might maybe someday make some sort of memorabilia display, you know, like the Allagash girls, boys.
Those Allagash jerseys might be tough to find right now, though.
maybe not. I don't know. Not sure. But no, but if I did take a jersey with me, New York Giants.
Okay, there we go. Diehard Giants fan.
Since 10 years of age.
That's all I had. I don't know if you have any parting words, anything you want to say to get up out of here.
I think it's fine. I hope we didn't bore people too much.
No.
We went. Jesus,
almost 2 hours. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes by fast. That's what everyone says. I'm like, how long do you think?
Lonnie says half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour, coach.
No. Once the stories start getting told, we just roll with it. So we got all kinds of good stuff.
No, very fortunate. I've been very fortunate. Lots of stories were told. Lots of stories were untold.
Yeah, we'll save those for another time.
Yeah. And I thank you very much.
Absolutely.
You made this very easy, Tom.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you for doing this. You're one of the biggest guests we've had so far, bringing legitimacy to the show right here. So. That's gonna do it for this.
If you last long enough, you're worth something.
Yeah, that's gonna do it for this week's episode. Make sure to check out past episodes on YouTube and on the iTunes channel, and also the Big Time Classics on YouTube. We will see you next week.